Hi, I'm Jonathan J, and welcome to this video where I interview entrepreneur Sam Turner. Now, Sam bought £17 million worth of businesses in just 15 months. But after he'd bought the businesses, the hard work started. Watch this video to find out what happened next. So Sam, in our last interview, we talked about how you have built a 17 million annual revenue business by doing 3 acquisitions. We've got a fourth that's just signed heads of terms on.
Yep.
And we talk in some of these interviews on this channel about how buying the businesses can be the easier part of the process. Once you've bought them, what happens next is the tougher part of the process. So I'd be very interested to know, let's take day one of the first acquisition, probably seared in your memory. What happened on day one?
Well, it was one of those that I think these things never go to plan. So the actual completion was supposed to be on a certain day, and then so I'd sort of gone with a friend of mine who's got the heating business who was going to help me with the first acquisition. So we were sat literally in the hotel waiting for the kind of completion to go through to then go to the office, and it didn't. So then we kind of stayed overnight and we went the next day. So I think these things never go to plan. But in that one, we had met the kind of number 2 who was going to step up to be MD. So we'd met him before, we'd met the finance manager before, so we'd met a couple of the guys. So the next day, we literally went to the office. Now, in these types of businesses, you only get a handful of people in the office because most of the guys are out,
Right on the road,
on the road or on the different projects. So it was almost a bit of an anticlimax in a way. It was like, there's no big audience or anything, there's a handful of people, and you just kind of try and go around and well, I think we said a little bit of a speech, but then what I did is get 10-15 minutes with everyone just to kind of settle them down. And
that's
just
nice. Because people do need to be settled, because they always think the worst,
always, and you kind of think, and I think this is also important as a lesson. Consistency is key. So sometimes you think you're saying the same thing over and over, but it's that classic, people don't hear it until they've heard it 7 times or something. There's a stat around that. You can't. I don't think you can over communicate, and I think communication is something that's really, really important. Being consistent with that, and holding true to what you're saying. The minute people start to believe what you're saying because what you've said is the reality, I think things start to, the tension starts to go. But initially, everyone concerned for their roles.
Well, everyone thinks they're going to be made redundant. Yeah,
of course.
Their business has been sold. They think they're going to lose their job, which is the exact opposite of what typically happens. Yeah. You want more people, not less.
Absolutely. Which is an easy message to give, but unfortunately, and quite rightly, people don't trust somebody new that they don't know before. So you have to demonstrate that with, like I say, being consistent with the communication, and slowly but surely them seeing that, you know what, actually nothing's really changed. It's kind of business as usual, and let's go out. And actually, maybe over time, there's a positive thing that's come. I remember the first business we acquired December, and it was the 1st of December it was. And one of the things that we did is we gave a small gift stroke bonus, or both actually, a small cash bonus and a gift. So for all the engineers, it was a big sort of crate of beer for everyone, and a 50 quid Amazon voucher, plus a bit of a, and that had never been done. Never been done. So it cost us about, I don't know, £3,000 or £4,000 in total or something for the 30 or so people. But it was, I think that was a good signal of intent in terms of, actually, and the feedback that came back was, that was, we didn't expect that. And that was so it's just those little things, and being, I think, consistent with the communication. But I think the danger for all of us is, I'm not there on a day-to-day in the business, because I'm not running the business or running any of the 3 or 4 or more. So you tend to assume that people know what you're thinking, that they know everything's okay but they don't know. So I think the more you can be at the
Yes.
location,
Well,
at least initially,
and also, if there's a void in
exactly,
communication,
they think the
people
worst.
fill the void
Yeah,
with gossip.
yeah.
And gossip is never, you don't have positive gossip.
No,
You
no,
only
no,
have
no,
negative
no.
gossip.
So I think that's a key lesson. I think it's just about, in our case, I mean, if you went into a business and you were looking to, just completely financial re-engineering or restructure or whatever, and that was the intent, obviously it's difficult to do what we're talking about. But if that's not the case and you want to grow the business, build on top of the good performance that I've had because it's a profitable business, it's got a good brand equity, etc. It's just being open and honest, and people seeing that you are open and honest. I think, I can't emphasize enough that being done consistently breeds a lot of trust. So I think that's probably the thing. Like you say, if you're not there, people will tend to kind of fill in the
Yeah,
blanks.
absolutely. And yeah, I've always tried to be the non-operational person, but underestimated that people still wanted to meet me, and I'm not the most I'm not the best people person
No, I was going to say.
in that environment. And I sometimes I say the wrong thing without realizing it. So yes, I think lesson learnt for my personality is that if you aren't that people person, make sure you've got an exceptionally good people person
Definitely.
to look after your HR, because everyone's going to be worried about their contracts.
Yeah,
And are you
definitely.
going to change my contract? And sometimes you are going to put everyone onto a similar contract because it makes sense for the business. But having the right person who can sit down, have a cup of tea with them,
Yeah.
listen to their personal life.
Yeah.
And I know that's just not me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No,
getting the right person is important.
Absolutely. So if it's not you, then have somebody that can do that. But so that, I mean, I'm not worried now about sort of going to a new business and having those conversations. 'Cause it's just, for me, it's about being open, honest, being present, at least initially.
Mhm.
So, I will always be a new business at least once a week on site with even if you're just working on other stuff, but you're there.
Yes.
I think less so once you don't need to be there every week. When 3-4 months down the road, so that's critical. But I think, just, I mean, for me, it's a bit of a culture shock coming from a large organization, large sort of global corporate organization, private equity owned, to a small business, because everything is different. The culture is different. What annoys people is different. There's much more of the, I would say, minutiae about, the coffee machine's not working, or, it's little stuff like that you would just, in a senior corporate role, you would never even discuss ever, but all of a sudden it's on the agenda. It's like, it's ridiculous. So you have to be a little bit aware that the world is different. You have to kind of think in a much more almost individual basis about what's going on in people's minds, as opposed to, well, we're a big corporate and this is broadly the direction, broadly doesn't work. It's everything is, well, she's pissed off because of this person, it's got to, dealing with that is, I found a little bit of a challenge, but that's something that you need to think about. The other thing, I think,
because it's petty from a
It
CEO
is,
perspective, but
it
it's the
ruins.
most important part of someone's life. If they can't get a good cup of coffee in the morning at work, then it's a bit of a grumble, isn't it?
Buying a business is just so rewarding, and I put together a free training showing you exactly how I do it. If you look in the video description below this video, there is a link. You click the link, you're taken through to the training, watch the training, and I'll show you exactly how to buy a business successfully.
It is, and we had a couple of sort of people issues, in one of the businesses where someone didn't get on with someone, and the way, the way that spread in terms of the dynamics of the organization was just a bit toxic. And I think in a small business, when you might only have 7 or 8 people in the office and the rest are that's critical. That cultural aspect is really critical. And I think that's something that is one thing that we want to think about more and more when it comes to these businesses, is how can we really create the culture that each business wants. And I'm very clear that it's not my culture that I'm trying to push down onto every business. they need to define what it is that makes them special, makes them unique. But
Hmm.
the danger, and I always find this, and I found this through the three businesses, the danger is when you're hiring for someone, and if you look at the process of hiring, whether it's an engineer, whether it's an electrician, whether it's a support office person, there's a number of skill sets that they're trying to tick off the list. Yeah, they can do that. They've got experience doing that. Yeah, they can do that, and that tends to be the focus of the interview. It tends to be the focus of the decision. But actually, what you want to do is place as much emphasis around the cultural aspects, meaning the kind of values and behaviors that these people demonstrate, because that actually makes you, that creates the right culture. And if you get somebody that's wrong, but has got the right skill sets, but is the
Hmm.
wrong type of
Hmm.
person, it just dilutes that sort of culture. So that's something that we're looking at now with each business, is to go through an exercise around, what are the core values of your business, and how do we use those, not to put up posters around the wall, but how do we really use those to create the right culture in your business that's a differentiator in the marketplace? So that's something that I think most small businesses seem to fail at. They're just, and it seems to be like a bit of a revolving door. Then somebody comes and then they last 6 months and then they go, and it's like,
Hmm.
but the cost of recruiting
Oh, I know.
and training
Yeah.
and is huge. So I think that's something that is not done well in a small business context, and that's another thing that we're focused on.
Yeah, interesting. And yeah, there's the question. Your people, are your biggest asset. They can also be your biggest liability, because if they don't work with you and want to work for you, then they will work against you.
Yeah,
And I've seen acquisitions go very wobbly when the staff don't buy into the new ownership.
yeah,
And like you say, the culture is absolutely key, and the happiness. We actually looked at putting in something called the happiness project. There's
yeah,
actually a thing called the happiness project, where you measure the
yeah.
happiness of the staff
Seen
every
that.
every
Yeah,
Friday,
yeah,
and we looked at that very
yeah.
seriously as an option. So let's talk about the other elements of a takeover. You did all share purchases, presumably, because of
Yes,
the way
yes.
you funded
Yep.
the deals. Um, and did you put in a CFO, or did you work with what you inherited?
Yeah, so what we did, and again, this was already in the business plan that we set out, was, and I do have a habit of saying we, but initially it was me, but I do have a habit of saying we because I think it's much more inclusive, right?
Yes.
But I keep thinking, well, actually, at the time it was just me. Um, So we put in the business plan to have a CFO after we had acquired three businesses because
Okay.
of affordability and everything else. So each business has its own, let's say, finance manager. Um, but we hired an exceptional candidate, I have to say, in November of last year. So he's been with us now 3 or 4 months. End of November, so about 3 months he's been with us, and it's just taken a massive load away from me. Plus, he's very good on systems. So outside of the core finance element, in terms of looking at the operational systems and process and technology generally, he's an ex PwC, but he's spent 4 or 5 years in a small business context as well. So he's kind of got the nice balance of the technical knowledge as well as the day to day. How do I interact with people on the ground, kind of thing? And he's very good at both, and he's been, I think, a real asset. And I think that's absolutely needed. I mean, for me, what I did with him was he actually took a pay cut to join, but we still need to finalize it. We're going to provide some equity options for him as
Okay.
part of this, because it's a more risky endeavor than going to join another company,
Hmm.
isn't it? You're kind of almost starting on your journey of growing, and you've got big plans, but it's more risky.
Hmm.
So we on the one hand, I wanted somebody who was willing to take a pay cut and take that risk, for the opportunity could be much greater in the future.
Yes.
So that's what we've done. So we have a CFO, and he's been great. And I think without that, it's very difficult now to, at least where we are with three businesses. I think we're going into the fourth. We're looking at a whole refinancing of the group as part of that. And I think that would just be impossible to keep on top of all those aspects. And I think he's very good at helping each of the businesses to understand their own numbers as well, which, again, let's face it, small business, they don't tend to be very good at understanding performance. And that's one thing that we bring to the table. So my um, my approach when looking at acquiring businesses is in this almost the sales pitch, but it's not the sales, it's the reality, and it's what we believe is every business will be better as a result of being on the platform because they'll
Hmm.
be able to get benefit from what we would term the collaborative initiatives across the group. So cross-selling to each other's clients, buying together, leveraging best practice, all of those sorts of nice benefits that we'll put a frame around and make sure that we drive. But they'll also get access to some good practice or best practice in the way of managing the business. So both from a financial management point of view. So my background's finance. Obviously, we have the CFO who's finance, but also from what we call like an operating framework. And we're using, I think I mentioned the other day, we're using what's termed the EOS framework. So the entrepreneurial operating system, for those who don't know it, and I would recommend it, is a very simplistic but holistic way of managing. So it talks about 6 segments and being good at 6 segments,
Hmm.
from looking at the vision of the company, so which includes who are we, where are we going, how are we different, what's our ambition, all these kind of thing. And it's quite a simplistic set of tools behind that to our people. Have we got the right people in the right seats? To our processes, have we got documented processes? Are they the right processes? Are they being followed? Through to data components as well, which again, most businesses are very bad at. What's the key metrics that you should be looking at all the time? That's not 3 months after the event, then you look at your P&L kind of thing. It's no, what are my leading indicators to see is the business performing or not? So we kind of bring that framework to each business. That's what we say. So the benefit for you is you're going to have a bunch of benefits to collaborate with the group, and we're going to support you in a bit more of a framework to make you more scalable as a business. And that's quite compelling.
So is this how you present to the seller?
Yep.
So they understand this is your approach.
Yep.
Now, I would imagine that that's an approach that people buy into
Yep.
very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what we have is 2 at the moment with the 4 businesses, and I include the one that we're at heads of terms. 2 are where the owner has wanted to step away, but the number 2 has stepped up. So we have a management solution. We won't buy a business without a clear management solution. And secondly, the other 2 are where people or the MDs or the previous owners, continue to run the business, which I know, people have different views on, but my view is that I believe that can work.
Hmm.
But what they want in both cases is they recognize they've got to a level and they probably they can't grow it anymore without things tipping over and falling over.
Yeah, and that works really well when you have got a business that's at that stage, but you've got owners who are of an age where they do actually see a future with the business.
Yep.
Or a future in business. Where if you've got the retiring owners, they just want to run for the hills,
Absolutely.
don't they?
Absolutely.
So you probably have got the more vibrant businesses that haven't peaked, that can't get to the peak, but need the professionalism that you can bring to the table to get there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And in both cases, these MDs, their desires to spend more time around the business development side, the sales side. That's what they're good at. That's what they enjoy, and they don't want to sort of deal with how the processes work at the back end and the systems and all that kind of stuff. And for me, that's fine. I mean, we're not a big group function. There's me, the CFO, and we've just employed what we call a chief support officer that's helping each of the businesses with implementing some of these initiatives. But we don't have armies of people to help, so we can help as much as we can. But it's a slow, iterative process as opposed to a big bang. Yeah. But what we say is that we can help over time. We can help with that, and slowly but surely you can be alleviated from that kind of stress of managing that and bring more growth in. And of course, we incentivize them to do that.
When buying a business, you need a great lawyer on your team. So why not use mine? His name is John Andrews, and his details are on the screen.
I think it's a model that can work, albeit we're only at the early stages, but I think it's something that is interesting to talk to other sellers where they go, you know what, I can get paid something now. I can get an even bigger number if the business does well. And
absolutely, I was going to say, do they retain equity in that situation?
We haven't done the retained equity because I just think, my opinion is cleaner to keep it, not have minorities, so to speak, from a legal perspective, but they're certainly incentivized. So,
okay, so you still buy 100% of the business.
Buy 100% of the business, but you've got, an amount that's, let's say, guaranteed, and then there's an amount that's an earn out, which is a reasonable component to drive the growth. And in this case, for example, we're saying the average or the aggregate EBITDA over 3 years. Again, so it's not just this year, but
so your interests are aligned, aren't they?
So, and that's important. If you're not, you very quickly come to blows. So I think taking some time around ensuring that the mechanism and the structure that you've got for that is ensuring that you are aligned in terms of interest is important, because otherwise you're going to come unstuck with that.
Yeah, no, interesting. So how are you applying what you learned from acquisition 1, 2, and 3 to deal number 4?
A couple of things. So, firstly, I think we touched on the working capital piece before, so it's understanding that you need to make sure that that's right. I think, secondly, the process, despite we're refinancing the whole group, so it's a more complicated process with a lender, because there's a bit more to it. Let's say a few more moving parts, but the particular acquisition, I would say, we're not getting hung up over the minutiae. So I think the danger in deals, I remember the first deal, is you got the due diligence, your legal, your financial, and to a certain extent your commercial due diligence, and you can get anal about every single point, and it just, you need to know what matters and what doesn't matter, and the stuff that doesn't matter, I even say to the lawyers now, don't even cover. So I only want you to cover this and this, because really this is important. You're going to write me a document on these other things, and I'm never going to read it, and it's not important enough to me. But these 5 areas are the ones that I really want to understand. I want to understand these contracts.
And this is all part of the sharpening of criteria and the focus, where at the beginning, everything's important, isn't it? And of equal importance. And that means there's a lot of work that's done that isn't really needed and is wasted. But then you can prioritize what's important, what you can just not even think about. For me, with the deals that I've done the most recently, we were going to get the staff, whether it's an asset purchase or a share purchase. So understanding how long they've been with the business, their employment contract, well, we're going to get it. And if we don't like it, well, we can't buy the business. We can't buy any business. So we actually looked less and less at that, because we discover that later on.
No, I think that's important, because otherwise you can get bogged down and get a bit lost and go down so many rabbit holes around things that actually are not that important. I think when you've done a number of deals as well, you'll realize what the sticking points tend to be. So what I then now do is try and put those sticking points up front in the heads of terms, so they're front and center. So this is how it's going to be. Let's discuss it now, because if it's not, then we've got a problem, because it's going to be like this. The classic case of we're funding the businesses through a bit of commercial debt, a bit of deferred consideration, a bit of equity, whether that comes from the cash or not. But that commercial debt will always be senior to the deferred consideration. But that's something that's a struggle for people to understand.
Sure.
So I'd rather put that front and center in the heads of terms, that will be your deferred consideration will be junior to any senior.
So let's just explain that for the benefit of the listener. So the solicitors for the seller will say, let's have some security. Let's have a charge over the company. For the deferred element, so that if there's a default on the deferred element, then we can put some pressure on the company, and we could even force an admin and sell the assets and so forth. However, that's what your lender wants, and you can't both rank number 1, so someone has to to be number 2.
Exactly. And unless you go for a very expensive debt option where they're happy to be number 2, 9 times out of 10, they're always going to say, no, we must rank senior to the
Absolutely.
deferred. So,
Yeah.
so that feels like a difficult one for some people to swallow. So I
Mhm.
think having that conversation up front, and even some of their advisors are not so clear on that, which for me is, well, that's always going to happen, and unless you've got a very unusual situation. So it's things like that which are going to be contentious. Try and upfront them as much as possible. I think the other thing is, when you're going through the deal process, there'll be a number of things which creates issues between the lawyers. And I think the first deal, I just kind of stood back a little bit to see, okay, well, where's this going to go? Whereas now I'm much more active on those. So if there's even a hint of an issue, I'll just get involved and say, right,
Yes.
this is the decision, this is what we're doing, etc. Or if it means a phone call to the seller to say, look, the guys can't agree on X. Look, this is my
Absolutely.
intention. Let's
Yeah.
do we agree just to do that?
Yeah, two sensible principals can often agree something in minutes
Yeah.
that would be days, if not weeks, of the lawyers going backwards
Yeah.
and forwards.
Exactly. So there are some things that I think you just get better at sort of managing the process, better at focusing on the right things.
So let's talk about your deal team. So the people on your side. Have you used the same lawyer for each deal?
Yes, we have. So at least for the first 3.
Okay.
So we're in discussing whether that's the right one for the for the
Sure.
4th or not.
It's always good to expand
Yeah, it
the
is.
options as well.
It
isn't
is. I mean, look, on the whole, I think they did a good job. So we used the same team, but I think it's also interesting to see who the other side have as well, because depending on that, it might be, well, actually, he's done a very good job for them. I'll speak to them, but I think I'd like to get to a point where you've got somebody that is your go-to for everyone. I'm not sure I'm there yet with this one, but it's been okay. Let's say from a lawyer perspective, and then what we have done is, because we've used commercial debt from a lender, they will always want to do their own due diligence, but they'll want to charge you for it. So what's the point in then doing your own due diligence
Exactly.
on top of that? So that's another learning, which we did in the first one. We had to kind of duplicate the efforts, and cost. So now we'll just agree what the scope is and make sure that scope covers what I need, or what we need, and then do it once. But we typically will then use whoever they're using, which will be a slightly larger firm than perhaps you'd want to pay for yourself. But
Yes.
that's part and
But
parcel.
you get a double whammy. You get the DD done, and you get the finance, you hope, at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they're the kind of two key things from a
Do you get anyone to look at the HR aspects?
We'll look at the contractual stuff from the legal side, but we don't have anyone to look at the HR aspects. And it's an interesting one, because with one of the businesses, they want to now employ. In fact, they used to have. They want to employ an HR person. And so that actually is a good example of, well, that may make sense to do at a group level, not at an individual company level, because you probably don't need a full-time person if they're good, but you probably can't afford either a full-time person if they're good. So why don't we maybe have somebody at a group level that can help each of the 3 businesses? And then I think that we're probably covering that point, because if you can access the management behind and some of the team, then I would encourage everyone to do that, because, like, we're buying service companies. It's about the people, it's about the culture, it's about the brand equity. So if you can't meet with anyone before that,
Sure.
that's a bit of a red flag now for me. So it
Oh,
would be good.
so you like to meet with the senior team?
Yeah, so at least a couple of the people
Okay.
to if somebody's the former owner wants this person to be MD, well, that's fine. I've got to meet the guy before we
Yes.
agree on that, and ideally a couple of others that are kind of key to the business, because you do realise that what makes you succeed or not in the medium term is how good your teams are in the businesses.
Absolutely.
And yes, you can change them over time, but it's great if you've got people that are hungry to deliver, and they can prosper under maybe new fresh leadership.
Yes.
Then I think that's a massive
And
plus.
are you introduced as an investor rather than an acquirer?
um, in some cases, yes, and I think that's how we've been positioned. When in some cases we've met some of the customers as well,
Mhm.
and it's always kind of this is the investor, because I guess that suggests less change and more money to spend, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah.
Um,
It's a very positive feeling. You know,
yes, it is.
this is the person who's going to be buying the business. Is
Yeah.
kind of it immediately puts you under scrutiny, doesn't
Yes,
it?
it does. It does, and that's fine. That's fine. What we want is, one of the key things after acquiring a business is you want as little transition risk as possible. So, what's most important is people in the organisation that they feel comfortable. Customers next, um, and then suppliers and other stakeholders. But certainly your people and your main customers is we make a beeline to make sure that people are comfortable. The right messages have gone to those people, and
Yes.
everyone is kind of calm and settled. So yeah, the investor route is normally one that people pick up on. Yeah.
So there are people who've listened to the first interview that we did together and this interview, maybe listened to them back to back as a sort of double
Oof.
whammy Sam Turner
Feel sorry for them.
extravaganza. And yeah, there are always people who sit on the fence. There are people who watch a lot of my videos, listen to the podcasts, and they don't make that first step into I'm going to actually do this. They watch from the sidelines. What would you say to those people to get them off the fence?
Well, I think it's a difficult question to answer because um, I think we touched on earlier. I'm somebody that likes to or recognizes that you need to take action if you want to get somewhere. I always say you are what you do. So what you do consistently is who you are. So if you want to be somewhere, do it consistently, and you'll get somewhere. And most people, like you say, they like the idea of that, but they don't want to kind of do the steps in between. So either way, you need to take action. Having said that, I I don't believe that it's for everyone. I think it's you got to go in with your eyes open, but hopefully people will have got that sort of understanding of what's involved, etc., from the various interactions and the training and whatever. So you got to take it action either way. It's kind of like the shit or get off the pot kind of. Excuse my language. But you got to take action in whatever you want to do. And if that's actually, I'm thinking about doing it, then if you've done the prep, if you've looked at getting yourself, reasonably well covered from an education perspective, you've got people that you can lean on, then take action. But like I say, I'm not somebody who professes that everyone should go out and do what we're doing, because I think for
Like,
some
for
people
example,
it's almost dangerous. To get
not
into
not everyone should start a business, for
No,
example.
absolutely.
It's the same
And I would
thing.
be that person. So I would say I'm not the person to start a business with a new idea from scratch and actually build it from the ground up. I don't think I'm that person. But can I sort of take something and sort of run with it once it's already kind of there? Yeah, I'm more that person. But like you say, everyone is different. But hopefully, if people have sort of, I guess what we're saying is you need to take action one way or the other. You either decide
Yes.
to do this or you decide to do
Because the
something else. But don't-
procrastination is not an action, is it?
No, exactly. Exactly.
It's either you're doing it or
Yeah.
you're not doing it. And
Yeah.
if you're not doing it, you do something else. And if you
Absolutely.
are doing it, do it as well as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And hopefully today's interview has helped people make that decision and also let them see the possibilities. Because if you'd taken a business from scratch, if you said I'm going to go out and start an HVAC business,
Oof.
15 months I think since the first deal, you wouldn't have got to the scale that you would have got now.
No.
You might not have got past go, really.
Yeah. I think that's right, and I think that's. I mean, it is a wonderful opportunity, I think, to build and create value. Again, I come back to what my purpose, if you like, is to create a positive difference with a number of stakeholders. That difference being the teams, the management, the customers, and just the stakeholders of the business. That I can look back in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years and go, they're in a better place as a result of coming along on the journey with us. So the money is kind of like secondary for me, and I also have kind of very clear plans of what I would do with that to help others. But I think there is a great opportunity in the way to kind of do this, and some of what you teach around the structures and all of that. There is a great opportunity. You've got to work out whether it's for you or it's not, and if it is, then go for it. That's what I would say.
And on that note, I think it's a perfect ending to this interview. Sam Turner, you've been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And good luck with the next deal.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Thank you.